Puglia is the oldest sporting goods shop in the state?
That I'm not sure of. I know one of the oldest grocery stores.
Really?
Yeah, or should I say superstore. I know my my ancestors, when they came over from Sicily, Italy, they on St. Claude Street in Ninth Ward, we had the first, super-sized grocery store.
So that's how it started out?
That's how it started. And then a uncle started next door to it.
What year do you think this was?
40s.
Okay.
So next door to that, we had an import-export business. Wine, cheeses, meat market, specialty stuff. And then next door to that was the sporting goods store. So there was 3 businesses. All the family was involved for generations.
So the 3 businesses, were they headed by different members of the family, or did one?
They were managed by different heads of the family, but ultimately, all owned by the matriarch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you know when the first Puglia arrived in New Orleans?
So on my mother's side, I got all that information. On my father's side, on the Puglia side, we don't actually have a lot of that intel. I have some aunts that kind of go through it from time to time, kind of keep track of it, keep records of it. But it's been years since we actually sat down and talked about it.
Yeah,
It's we haven't had a family reunion in a very long time.
We have some rough ideas of who arrived when and from where and from all over the world. Grandmother on my father's side from Ustica, off the coast of Italy. My grandfather on my father's side from the Basque Country, between France and Spain. Got one grandfather on the other side from Germany, and a grandmother from Spain. So people came from all over. But that's our region. That's New Orleans. That's why New Orleans used to be one of the greatest cities in the world.
Yeah. So, grandfathers, great-grandfathers, uncles, they all sat on different boards for the city, So they weren't just, they didn't just have a grocery store or a sporting goods store. They were involved with the community. I hear more stories from customers today about the old Puglias in the Ninth Ward than I hear from my own family members. So it's interesting. We'll get some old timers that come through the store today on veterans, and they'll always ask me, "Are you a Puglia?" I say, "Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. I am." And they'll always say, "Let me tell you about a story," or "Let me tell you when I used to work, bag groceries there." And that's, that happens several times a month at least, and it's pretty cool.
At what point did it start to turn more sporting goods, and then at what point did you guys move? Was there a move from there to someplace else before veterans, or did you guys make the hard move from there to veterans?
Okay, so my father, Tony Puglia, convinced his father and his uncle to buy up some property on veterans and to get him to help start the veterans location. So grandfather and uncle built the veterans location, started it while having the St. Claude Ninth Ward location still open. And then not long after that, my father opened up a West Bank location. So we had 3 locations at one time.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. And then the Ninth Ward St. Claude location, it was a combination of things why it closed. It was, maybe the neighborhood was kind of on a decline. There was storms.
Sure.
Hurricanes. Family members just wanted to get out. They were getting old, So at that point, when that business closed on the Ninth Ward, my dad focused all his attention on the West Bank and the veterans location. Mm-hmm. And then over time, the West Bank closed down, and then now everything is solely focused on the veterans location.
What year? What year was that?
I would say St. Claude probably closed down in the early to mid 80s.
They don't put Sportsman's Paradise on the license plate for nothing. It's truly the cornerstone of our culture here. It's the one thing that no matter where you're from, where your people are from, if you live here, you have, or there's a large part of the population that does have some affiliation with the outdoors and with sporting. What we have here is people go to the camp.
Right.
You know, people go to the camp. They go to the deer camp. They go to the duck camp. They go to the fishing camp. It's a serious thing. And if anybody is involved in any of this and in the area, you probably have been to Puglia Sporting Goods, or at least know who they are. So the Shark, has the Shark always been there?
It has.
Always.
Day one.
Is that the original Shark?
The building was built around the Shark.
Get the hell out of here. Do you know where it came from?
I think it came off the east coast of Florida.
Was it a prop or something?
No, Dad was fishing a billfish tournament down in Florida when he was younger, and someone brought that shark
See if you
in.
can pull a picture of the shark up. You got it up?
Yep.
There it is. No.
Dad was fishing a billfish tournament, and someone brought that shark in, and Dad had a taxidermist come down and make a mold.
No way. So wait a second. That's a real what?
Yeah, it might have been.
I thought it was a movie prop.
No,
Son of a gun.
no, they made that. I mean, it's
Holy smokes. Does it have a name? Can I try?
Go for it.
Chopper.
No,
Damn it.
Close.
I wasn't trying to guess. I was trying to come up with my own.
Yeah.
That was my entry for the event that already happened.
Chomsley.
Chomsley. I was so close.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
I was so close.
Yep.
I love it. Chomsley, probably a reference to Chopsley from Morgus the Magnificent.
That's it. That's it. Yep. You're right. But
Chomsley, I love it. Okay, that's good. I had no idea. That's good stuff. So, man, that's cool. So, as a young fella, I didn't grow up around the coastal Louisiana. We live fairly out in the country in Tangipahoa Parish. And for us to go down to the coast was that was an adventure. It was like going to another planet.
yeah.
I remember going to Grand Isle in August and catching flounders, up and down Caminata Pass with my dad and my uncle and friends and family. And we'd stand in the water, and we never had a boat. We would just fish, where you could get. And I think a lot of people used to fish that way. Now, nowadays for liability purposes, they don't let you do that anymore. But those flounders still stack up in Caminata Pass every August.
Sure they do.
They do. But going down there, it opened my eyes to a whole other world of people. I had no idea. I was young, but I remember, discovering the notion that people had these boats and they went offshore, and it was just, I'm serious. It's the best way I can describe it. It was like spaceships to me, and I remember being so just mind boggled of all of this stuff. And I'm 46 years old. I was in Venice for the Faux Pas tournament a couple weeks back, and I had the same experience. You got guys pulling up in 37-foot Freemans, and I'm still marveled by it. I'm absolutely marveled by it.
People are always going to chase, they're always going to chase fish, hunt. I mean, it's, we, you were mentioning earlier about the sportsman paradise, right? So I never really appreciated that phrase until a couple of years ago. If we want to touch on something real quick.
Yeah, do it.
So during this whole COVID deal was probably one of our busiest times in our industry, in my business. And what I was noticing is that at least 75% of our customers were customers we haven't seen in years. Like I'm talking 10 years. And it was because that, you get to a certain age, your attention starts to focus more on your kids, their sports, their school, right? Mm-hmm. You kind of lose the capability of going fishing on the weekends or going hunting on the weekends, or, And what happened was people weren't working. And instead of sitting home, they got back into fishing. They got back into hunting. So they were all coming back in, buying new equipment, And what's neat is we just kind of captured on a whole new generation of hunters and fishermen, because now that kid and father they're not at the ballpark playing baseball or football.
Mm-hmm.
Now the father's bringing them into Puglia and introducing them to what he was introduced coming up by either his dad or an uncle. You know what I mean? So we captured.
I would say I had the same experience myself in
Really?
that time. Oh gosh, it was the most time I ever spent with my children since they've been alive. You know, we call it the super summer. That's what
right.
we called it. We called it the super summer, and I spent a majority of that time catching catfish in the Tchefuncte River, in the Tangipahoa River. I did the same thing. I said, you know, what's going to make me feel better in this difficult time?
Right.
I said, I think I'll go catch a fish. It's the only thing I could think of to do to help myself.
Yeah.
And it worked.
So this whole notion, like you were saying, the sportsman paradise, you know, someone has to pass the torch on, right? Someone has, you just don't wake up one day and say, hey, I'm going to be a football player. No, you got to have someone teach you.
That's right.
How to play football. So in our business, you know, you always have that uncle. If you don't have, you know, father doesn't want to hunt, you got an uncle or an aunt. You know, someone likes to fish, someone likes to hunt, a friend of a friend, and that person teaches that young kid how to fish or hunt. I mean, that's how our business drives, you know, and that's, you know, when we give back, you know, donations or we do nonprofits, it's always focused around kids.
Sure.
You know, that's why, you know, the schools, you know, all the fishing rodeos. It's but I wanted to go back and touch on that whole sportsman thing, man.
I'm glad you did. It's true. Listen, not to be overly sentimental, but it is, you know, as you get a little bit older, you start to really genuinely appreciate these things.
Right.
And I think that sort of stuff is superbly important. It's a big, not to go political, but it's a big part of what is wrong with our society and what's wrong with our country is that these children are being raised on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and video games and shitty food. And what do you expect to happen to these young people? You know, what do you think is going to happen? When you put bad in, you get bad out. So when I go places and I see young people, when I was down in Venice a few weeks ago, I saw this little kid trying to catch a crab off the pier. And he had a little piece of shrimp on a hook, and he kept trying to lure that crab out of the water. And he kept trying. I watched him for a minute, and I said, hey, man, you need a net. And he was like, I don't have a net. And I said, I have a net. Stay here. And I went and got a landing net. Yep. And I said, look, bro, you lay the landing net down on the bottom, and then you lure him on top of that net, and then you get him. Mm-hmm. And, dude, that little dude sat there. And
he'll never forget that.
He wore him out.
Yeah.
I asked him, I said, where's your daddy? He goes, he's over there by the boat. I'm like, all right, I'm going to help you. And so we got it dialed in, and it was a good time, man. Let's talk about the store for a minute.
Okay.
You know, oftentimes, and again, this is for the folks who haven't been there or haven't been there lately, because something I like about what you do, and I try to do the same thing in my business here at the jewelry shop, I'm always trying to craft the environment. I'm always moving products and massaging a line in here, or you know what, we got 2 feet right here. Let's move this over here. Take this and move it to the back. Let's move this here, and you know, you're crafting the thing. Every time new product comes in, you have to look at it and figure out. You can't just throw it in a case. I mean, sometimes you do, but not usually. You know, you have to massage everything, because when people come in, even if you've never been there before, it's a wonderful experience. But if you have been there before, it's always refreshing to come in and you can smell the fishing lures. You know, you can smell that plastic. You know.
Well, you know, I tell my employees all the time when, you know, we do get new stuff in daily. You know, presentation is key. You know, you just can't throw it up on the wall and let it stick. You gotta be strategic with it. You gotta put it where it needs to go, and you gotta lay it out the way it needs to be.
You
laid
have
out.
an extraordinary variety of products.
We do.
Extraordinary.
We try to
it's
carry a little
monumental.
bit for everybody. I mean, it's.
So I noticed you have all of the classic lures, and then you have the harder to find, you know, tournament grade lures, I call it. You know, look,
Sure.
$14 crankbaits, are not for everybody, but there's guys trying to win a tournament and he needs a specific color. He needs it with the best hook made. He needs it a certain way. And you guys really specialize in having, you got H&H's, you got sinkers, but you have the most exotic and elaborate, cutting edge. Not so much, and I'll really speak to this because my dad told me when I was a kid, and this is still true, most fishing lures are meant to catch people and not fish, right? That is the truest thing ever. I find you guys don't have a lot of that gadget bullshit. You really gear toward the fisherman grade.
Right.
These are the ones that catch the fish. Like when you go back there where you have the big game tackle in the back, you got the stuff, man.
Well, so the number one thing, one of the most important things in that business is most of that stuff is in there because of my customers asking for it. So that whole, listen to your customer. Customer's always right. If you came in and said, Anthony, man, I've been looking for this bait. Oh, we don't have it. Who is it? Let me see if I can get it. And I'll order it. And the next time you come in, I'll have 6 different colors of that one bait. And I'll tell you, I'm like, hey, got those baits in. So a lot of the stuff in that store is there because people ask for it.
Yeah, you're listening.
Right. And I tell my employees, I said, we have a short list. I said, short list stays behind the counter. If we don't have it, put it on here. We'll order it, And that's, you got to do that.
If a couple of people ask for it, it moves up the list.
No, usually we try to get everything that gets put on that list. Yeah, that's why
cool. That's pretty cool.
That store is so full. And I kind of try to put myself in a customer's. So you got to just think of different scenarios. If you're going down to faux pas to go fish, I try to put myself in your shoes. What am I going to need, fishing wise, right? And I'll make sure I have it. Or if you're going duck hunting for opening week in a teal season, what do you do before you go teal hunt? You check all your equipment, right? Everything from shotgun shells to the bilge pump in your duck boat.
Make sure your waders don't leak.
Right. Yeah. you go through everything, and that's what I do. I go through the whole gauntlet of ideas of, what you're going to need. And I make sure I have it for that duck hunt.
So was the building always 2-story?
Yes.
So the bottom level, all fishing, right?
Fishing most of the year. During this time of the year in August, when we start getting hunting products in, we'll start moving some stuff around and putting shotgun shells and decoys. And
no sense in carrying them upstairs just to carry them downstairs.
Right.
Good thinking. So upstairs is that's guns and apparel and archery.
A little bit of archery, bow, crossbow stuff.
Crossbow stuff. Yeah. So you guys, I once heard this, and tell me if this is true. Somebody told me you guys are one of the oldest. I don't know if it was you're the oldest Browning distributor in the state or in the region. There was something you guys had some really, really long standing relationship with Browning to some degree. Was there any truth to that?
Yeah, we've been carrying Browning since day one.
Since day one.
Our company is older than a lot of these gun manufacturer companies.
Yeah.
But we've carried Browning, Benelli, Beretta.
You guys have everything,
right?
For sure. But I remember hearing that once and thinking, well, that's interesting. That's a hell.
Well, I'll tell you something that's kind of interesting. So, we're a smaller family business. We're not a big, I'm gonna say like Cabela's or Bass Pro or Academy, but we are number one in a lot of things. And what I mean by that is we are number one Beretta dealer.
Nice.
We are in the state.
Really?
We are the number one Benelli dealer.
Tell it.
We are the number one Shimano dealer. You know what I mean? So
it's hard to do, man.
Right.
It's hard to do when you've got everybody in the universe as competition.
Yeah.
You've got everybody, dude. You got Walmart. You got Bass Pro. You got Cabela's. You got the internet. You got everything. And somehow or another, you're still able to do that.
Yeah.
Well, I think I know how.
We, you got to be there every day.
That's right.
You got to pay attention, watch everything. And most importantly, you got to make sure your customers are happy.
So talking about guns, all sorts of the past few years have been pretty crazy for guns and ammo.
Yeah, to say the least. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, it's been nuts. Now, I stocked up during the Obama years because I like to say I saw this one coming. But what's happening with ammunition? Is it really the sort of thing to where you believe is there just a production issue, or is there an actual onslaught by the anti Second Amendment people to strangle this out of our society?
I think it was a little bit of everything. So, before the whole COVID riot year, right? I could pretty much find any kind of ammo you can imagine, right? And wouldn't have a problem ordering as much of it as I wanted for the store. But once we got to that point where COVID hit, people weren't working or weren't allowed to work, we get to the point where riots were happening throughout the country. It was kind of snowballed. So all the supplies and stock got bought up by businesses and distributors from the factories. Now, once that was gone out of the factory's production level was low because they didn't have the workers working in the factories, right? Then once they did go back to work, all the retailers and all the distributors said, well, I ain't going to let this happen again and run out of ammo. So they order literally as much as they can afford, which then put a shortage on the supplies. So primers, gunpowder, copper, zinc, wads, everything. So there wasn't enough material to make the ammo for the orders. So then it just got into, man, I need a box of 308 rifle ammo. You find somebody that's got 10 boxes, then you buy all 10 boxes. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So not that person will never shoot 10 boxes in his lifetime probably for hunting.
No.
But he felt the urge, the need that he had to buy it.
Once the idea of the limited resources there, people they grab it up, like the toilet paper.
Right.
I still don't understand what that was about.
Exactly.
Was there an early rumor that there was going to be massive diarrhea or something? I really don't, is that where we are as a society? Because I didn't do it. I mean, we had toilet paper at home already because I like to think ahead. But, when people were like, oh God, this could be, because there was a point in time where I was like, holy smokes, this could get really, really bad. Buying toilet paper wasn't a road to self-rescue for me. I never,
right.
I never thought to do that.
For the whole ammo thing, it just wasn't ammo, it was guns too.
Sure.
But it was, a lot of different products.
Did Remington go under?
They did for a while, sure. And then they were bought up. They were split up. So
Gotcha.
Under the Remington umbrella, there were several other companies, Marlin, Bushmaster,
Gotcha.
The ammo side. So different companies came in and, broke it up and purchased it. So it's back and, it's up and running.
They're back doing things.
Yeah.
I tell you what, man, it's such a big topic, and it's difficult to discuss it because who knows the answers to this stuff?
Right.
It's also, everything is shrouded in mystery, and there's a lot of rumor, and I don't believe you hear so much. We live in the information age, and you are constantly bombarded with people talking about what they heard or what they saw on Google, and somehow or another this makes them informed.
Right.
I've gotten to the point where I just block all that stuff out. I really do. And there's a few people I like to listen to who I think have something to say, but anything I see on the news, I don't believe anything I hear on the news from either side. I don't believe any of it. I just don't give it a place in my brain.
Yeah. So whenever they're up there talking, either side, when they're talking about guns, whether it's gun laws,
They're talking about anything.
Yeah.
I don't believe anything. When they talk about banking, what's happening with money in this country, I'm like, whatever.
When they try to describe a gun or talk about gun laws,
30,000 rounds a second.
Yeah, and it's kind of scary, if they can't understand that, but they're gonna make a law on it.
Yeah, they're the bump stop grenade launcher clip. Mm-hmm. It's crazy, and these are the people who are supposed to be making the decisions.
Yeah, it is pretty scary, man. So it was couple crazy years there. You know, it's you know, we did sell a lot of handguns, you know, for protection. You know, people were scared, and it was, again, a lot of new customers that, you know, they never wanted guns in their house. You know, maybe they leaned a little bit more left and just didn't feel the need they needed one or wanted to learn how to use one. But there was a lot of them.
People over the last 20 years, you know, the tunes have changed. You know, 20 years ago, Mandeville was a retirement community, right? That's all it was. It was a bunch of, it was like a hippie commune over here, man. It was peace, love, happiness, and sailboats. You could pull out here on Florida Street in front of the jewelry shop, and people would slow down and wave you out into traffic.
Yeah.
You know, this one was 2 lanes. Not so much anymore. The pace has picked up a little bit. It's still a nice community, you know, of course, but the pace has picked up a tick. But I'm hearing what I used to hear was, yeah, we had a business in New Orleans. We had a business in Metairie. My husband and I retired, and then we came over here, and the kids are running it now. Or I used to work for this company and the oil field, whatever it was, you know, and they retired and came to Mandeville. But at that time, there wasn't a lot of resources here, and people to go to a nice restaurant, they always felt like they had to get in the car and go to New Orleans, or to go have some sort of, you know, fun time, they'd had to get in the car and go to New Orleans. And to some degrees, you know, Mandeville doesn't have much nightlife, never really has. It's more of a bedroom community. You know, this is more of a dinner party type place than go out and have a big night on the town. It's just not, it ain't built in. You know, it's just not built into the culture here. But there was always this I left my heart in New Orleans sensation, the sentiment from people. And then a few years ago, I started to hear a different tone coming from people. It was one of contempt or sadness, loss. You know, people say, you know, the city I grew up in is gone. You know, that's a strong statement.
Oh yeah,
but you can't argue with them. They grew up in the city, and they say my city that I knew is gone. That's a very, very powerful thing to hear from people. And you know, we didn't come here to talk politics, and I don't want to, you know, steer it into a massive political argument. There's enough people who do that, and they do it better than I can. But you know, I can imagine the things that you're hearing from people in your community, in your area of where you're doing your business.
I hear it at least every other day, and it's you know, I grew up in Metairie, went to Rummel, you know, but spent plenty time in New Orleans, you know. But you know, I don't go down there anymore. I don't let my kids go down there. I don't let my wife go down there, certainly without me. But, you know, the customers.
Now, let me stop right there. A few years ago, people would have said, oh, you're just scared, bro. You know, y'all scared. I've actually heard people, old school people from New Orleans, oh, y'all scared, because we're from the country.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do it with the accent, so I don't care what y'all think. Oh, bro, y'all scared to come down to the city. But I had a guy with me one time, and he said, man, I ain't scared of nothing but God and my mama.
You know, my family is from the 9th Ward, you know, and, you know, it's like you said, it's disheartening, man. I do get customers, they call me, and, you know, the majority of them is, you know, Anthony, you know, that gun I bought from you last year, you know, my car got broken into or stolen. I hear that 3 times a week, you know, and they need copies of receipts or, you know, are asking what to do. And, you know, and unfortunately that is occurring constantly. You know, I know a lot of family and friends that are moving over here to North Shore, and they're bringing their businesses. You know?
We've had probably the biggest growth years of my career in the past few years. COVID was big for us too. people were kind of stuck at home, and in the jewelry business, I'm really in the relationship business. I'm really in the marriage business, and I saw a lot of people, spending more time with their spouse in their home than they ever had, and it had an interesting effect. Some people bailed out. There's like, you know what? After further review, I really don't want to do this anymore. But it just happens.
I would have thought it'd been the opposite.
But I was building up to that. I was saving the good part to last. But we had so many people who said, you know what? I got an anniversary coming up this year, and I'm going to do something nice.
Yeah,
or I've got a birthday coming up. We had a lot of people bail out, but we had more that came in and said, you know what? I want to do something nice. And because people weren't traveling and people weren't buying, new cars, a lot of people did home remodels. A lot of people did their landscaping, a lot of home projects. I finished my pool house finally, tore out my kitchen. I got busy. But a lot of people doubled down on their relationships and their marriages, and a lot of people decided to just go for it and tie the knot in the first place. And listen, that's what drives our industry.
Yeah.
We're anyway. It's been really good, and we've got so many new clients. Not to make it about me, but when I started this business, I didn't have a lot of clients. I really didn't. I had a small group of people that I had been working with. Dude, I was selling jewelry out of a briefcase. And I ended up working in California, doing design work and doing my jewelry progression. Because when you get out of school for a craft or a topic or whatever it is, you just know what the school taught you. You really don't know anything.
Sure. Yeah.
You go to school for petroleum engineering. You don't know how to get the oil out of the ground. You got to go see somebody do it to learn. And I kind of got my master's in jewelry while I was working in California and saving money to try to open my own business. And I ended up moving back here to Louisiana, and in doing that. But when I started, it was very modest. There wasn't a lot of clients. There wasn't a lot of interest, and it was kind of sleepy. The town was not booming. So we have very, very intently and carefully watched the clients and very cautious about what they want, what they don't want, what services we should provide and what services we should stay away from. And man, in the past couple of years, it has been a ramp up. Now, I've been preparing for this. I don't know if I did it on purpose. I think I just happened to be in the right position. People who have more sense than me, who've been in the business longer than me, who have more money than me, a lot of them did the wise thing and played the cards slowly. Just keep things moving. Don't get crazy with the money. I, on the other hand, I buy jewelry like a drunk sailor. When I go to a trade show, I buy jewelry. When I go to a gem dealer, a gem cutter, I stock up. I love it. I love doing it.
Was the inventory low during COVID, like it was for us?
I had a lot of stock. I've always had a lot of stock. Now, what we're starting to see now, to answer your question, the inventory, there was a tremendous amount of inventory in hold. Because in my industry, when somebody wants something, they just call somebody else and the product moves around.
Right.
So you may have a manufacturer, in Europe or in Asia or here in the U.S. even. There's very few manufacturers left in the United States of America. Most of the manufacturers are independent manufacturers like myself. They make pieces for clients as well as retail business. But what we really have started to see lately is the lack of production from the mines as a result of fuel shortages throughout the world. Diesel runs the mining industry all over the planet because they don't mine for gemstones in the middle of town. They mine for gemstones in places that would make a sheep hunter sick.
Right.
It's so far. It's so remote. Those ice road truckers, they're going to mines. They're not going up there to service country clubs.
Yeah.
They're going there to service mines. They're bringing fuel. They're bringing supplies because everything. Now these are mineral mines. These are gemstone mines.
Sure.
There's diamond mines in Canada. Up in that ice road. But there's a lot of oil and gas and resources up there. So all throughout the world, the gem industry is that way, and that's been the biggest real crunch that we've seen as a result. That and of course there's a labor shortage in the United States of America. There is a labor shortage, and it's not because there's no people. It's because people don't want to work. I don't understand why. I don't know where you're getting money to buy fuel for your car that you're driving around outside, because I see them, right?
Right. Yeah.
How many cars pass in front of your place on Veterans?
Thousands.
Thousands. Are all those people gainfully employed? It can't be. It can't be, because there's not that many businesses.
I don't know. I can't answer that one. We
Think of it.
We had a struggle getting employees for a long time. Which in the past we've never had any issues.
The people need a sportsman show on the North Shore.
So when the New Orleans show came back to the Superdome, I did a 4,000 square foot, but I did it to where I was the only sporting goods store allowed in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I brought in 38 factories, and
Wow.
I each gave them a 10 by 10 booth space inside of my store inside the Superdome. And we did that for 3 years, and it was the biggest trade shows we've ever
When was the
did.
last one you did?
The year before COVID started.
I was there.
Yeah.
I was there. You gave me a hat. It's in my office. It's hanging on the hat rack in my office.
But honestly, you do good sales, but you don't make good money at these trade shows. I kind of use it more as a, like you were saying, you meet people that you haven't met before, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of like discount everything just to kind of like, hey, Puglia has been, they got.
Don't forget about us.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love doing that kind of stuff. And I love seeing people in my industry that I don't get to see often. It might be somebody you talk on the phone with every other week or, pretty regularly. You don't get to see them.
Sure.
And so to have these, these are your people, when you draw them close. It's nice to be around your own kind,
So I'll tell you a funny story if we got time.
Sure.
The first year they brought the Superdome show back out, the people that were put it on was Louisiana sportsman people, with the magazine, right?
Mm-hmm.
They begged me to try to get the manufacturers to bring in firearms, right? They wanted Benelli, Browning, Beretta there, showing hunting guns. And I said, that's easy for me to convince them to do that. I said, the hard part is getting the Superdome to allow us to bring in guns. And I said, we didn't think about that. So I get a phone call one day, and it's the executives from Louisiana Sportsman magazine saying, hey, look, you have a meeting tomorrow at the Superdome with the commission to try to convince them to let you bring in guns. I said, me? Like me alone?
It's your
And
job.
You're right. And they said, yeah, can you be there at the Superdome at this time? I was like, just felt like I got thrown to the lions.
How'd it go?
Dude, unbelievable. So when I got there, didn't know anybody. Usually, if there's 10 people in a room, I kind of recognize one of them, didn't know any of them. And none of them really kind of understood guns. And the way I figured that out real quick is because I was going over safety protocols, trigger locks, pulling firing pins out of the gun. So
It's the greatest ignorance of people who are not familiar with guns. And it should explain why they're so afraid of guns, because none of them know gun safety.
right. Yep.
Carry on.
So I was able to stand up in front of them and convince them that the guns would be safe no matter what. So
The guns wouldn't kill people?
right. So
Gotcha.
besides pulling all the firing pins out of the mechanism, putting trigger locks on them, and then putting them in a gun safe at night, right after we left. Of course, no ammo at the show, right? So they all voted on it. Yep, you can bring them. And I was shocked. A week before the show, they called me. They canceled bringing the guns to the show.
Nice.
Because somewhere in Europe, they had a concert. One of the female artists, someone got shot at a concert. So not only could we not bring guns, but we could not bring knives.
I was going
Like
to say.
fillet knives for cleaning fish.
I was going to say, dude, listen, that was a tip of my tongue. They made me, I had made some knives and I was bringing them to show. Hell, I think I was bringing them to show you. And I had a couple of other people there that I was just like, hey, check out this knife I made. Just for, for the hell of it. I enjoy making knives.
Sure.
Being a jewelry maker, I like to make other things. They made me turn around and bring it back. Or they told me if I paid, they would hold it. They tried to hustle me.
And that's why people don't want to go down New Orleans anymore.
And I walked all the way back to the parking garage, which is a damn long way. And I put those knives back in there. And the whole time I'm walking back, I'm telling myself, that's what I get for coming here.
And now you got to go get money to get in.
Yeah, that's what I get for coming here. And so that kind of bullshit is why we need a North Shore hosted event of some kind. You need to get on this.
Yeah,
Something, man.
So some of the biggest CCA banquets and DU banquets and, the Turkey Federation, Rocky Elk Mountain Foundation, some of the biggest fundraisers are on the North Shore. They're at the Castine Center. Every year we go to them, and they're full. I don't know if you've ever been to them, but they're.
I haven't. I go to the gun shows from time to time at the Castine Center, but I've missed some of these other events.
So we go. I bring the family. We get a table. We eat. We have a good time. But it's wall to wall, full of people, and it's one of the biggest attendances and one of the largest donations out of all of them.
The thing about the North Shore is that we don't have the population density, of course, that New Orleans has or Baton Rouge has.
I think we got the love, though.
We do. We're like in a little bubble,
Yeah.
I'm gonna enjoy it for as long as it lasts, But there's a lot of people here who enjoy boating. It's a tremendous. I go out on the Chaffauqua River all the time, and there's just an extraordinary number of people now who are utilizing those resources like never before. So the idea of having like a sportsman show. And maybe that might be the case, is that it's there's not a venue large enough to hold it. I mean, I don't have all those answers. I'm not a promoter.
Well, we tents. That's it.
You know what? You're right. We're right. Tents. I go to some jewelry events that spill outside of the convention centers. I go to one in Tucson, Arizona. It's the largest gem show in the world. And they host it at the Tucson Convention Center, and directly in the parking lot, there's the biggest flipping tent I have ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
Air conditioned, secure, beautiful. You're right.
That's what they do in Gonzales at the. They do a second show
At the Dixon?
Yeah,
Lamar
a
Dixon
lot of
Center?
it is tents.
I'll be darned. Well, hey, listen, putting that out there, folks.
Yeah.
Well, listen, we gotta do what you live here now. It doesn't matter where you used to live. You live here now. You need to do something to support your community. Do something on the North Shore.
I'm pretty sure we would draw a lot of people from the South Shore to the North Shore.
No
with that
doubt.
show.
No doubt. Well, to think about how many people are cooped up in their homes. I hate that. I don't want to be dark, but I've had people who live on Jefferson Avenue tell me stories about what it's like. And I'm just not from there, so these are new stories for me.
Sure.
I didn't grow up hearing this stuff. I am getting now in Mandeville, not to brag, but I'm going to brag. I'm getting people who live in New Orleans, who work downtown, who instead of shopping within a mile of where they are, I swear, are driving. They get in their car in their parking garage. They get in their car from work, and they leave and they come to Mandeville and they buy jewelry from me. and then they turn back around and they drive back home, and then they pull in their garage at their house and in their gated community, and they feel safe. That's a hell of a thing to have to do. But if you're of that mind, DeBoss Fine Jewelry is the place to do it. Anthony, look, man, I want to tell you how pleased I was to know that you would want to come and visit with me and take some time to share some of these stories. This is truly a treat, and I think this is one of my favorite things. I'll say this also, and in closing, this is one of my favorite things about my industry, is that I get to meet people who have been places and done things. Look, I talk to people all the time who are brilliant. You know, you ever talk to somebody and you're like, ooh, you're smart. God, dog, you know? Or you talk to people who know about, like, I talk to people who know about, I'm like a child when it comes to, you know, finance and banking. You know, I get $1, I try to make $1.50. You know what I mean? But when I talk to people who have, you know, just real depth and experience at something, it truly captures my attention and completely motivates me to keep going and to learn new things. And anyway, so I wanted to say thank you and to tell you I count you in that number. So
I appreciate
thank you
that,
so much
man.
for coming, man.
It was great.
Absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Nothing to it. We'll do it again sometime.
Definitely.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
It's the Diamond King. It's the Diamond King podcast.